So I was sitting down to plan the next dozen videos for this channel, and the sensible thing to do seemed pretty obvious. Talk about getting more clients, better acquisition, offers, funnels, give the people what they think they need, right? All the problems that expert founders think that need to be solved, that they are interested in, and strategically, it made perfect sense. The right thing to do, at least according to the greats, is to give your audience what they want, not what they actually need. You give them what they actually need once they pay you, right? And even if deep down you know that what they want isn't going to actually make much of a difference, there is this pressure to do exactly just that. And I could feel my energy dropping even as I was thinking about it. I was about to create content for a business oriented around turn on and aliveness by creating stuff that made me feel less alive and less turned on. And almost falling into the trap actually forced me to confront a question that I think every expert entrepreneur eventually has to answer, which is, do I have to choose between creating what the market knows it wants and creating the work that actually feels most alive in me? Do I have to choose between being an artist and being an entrepreneur? Between creating my greatest works of art and actually becoming extraordinarily wealthy? And I don't think we do. In fact, I think that choice is based on an increasingly outdated model of business. And what I want to share with you today in this video will prove to you that opening the faucet on your creativity will not just save your soul, but actually make you disgustingly rich. Because AI is making it easier to create almost everything that your business needs: content, courses, images, thumbnails. The thumbnail for this video actually was created with the help of AI, software, systems. So competent execution is becoming cheaper, faster, and easier to reproduce. And this is why a lot of very unintelligent people are looking very intelligent online. People's emails have suddenly improved, even though their IQ hasn't changed. But the problem is that this is making competent work easier to copy and harder to distinguish. So the obvious response, for most people is using AI to produce even more of the same stuff. But doing that may actually be exactly what's making your business way more invisible. And I believe that the founder who becomes most valuable over the next decade is going to be a completely different kind of founder. This is someone whose taste, judgment, worldview, lived experience, and original way of creating value cannot be separated from the work. Basically, an artist, but not the starving kind, a rich artist. So in this masterclass, I'm going to show you why your creativity is actually becoming an economic advantage, how to develop it into artistry, how to build an entire business world around it, and how to use AI to extend that world and amplify your impact without replacing the thing that made it valuable in the first place. And I've spent years building my own multi-million-dollar expertise business. I've helped thousands of founders grow theirs. And the deeper I go into this work, the more convinced I become of one thing, which is the greatest economic advantage in the AI age may be becoming more yourself, not less, and then building an efficient, enjoyable, and profitable business capable of capturing the value that your creative flow produces. Okay, so let's get into it. So for most of the expertise economy, knowing something valuable gave you a massive advantage, right? Like if you knew how to solve a problem that other people couldn't solve, or you knew more than they knew about something, you could package that knowledge, you could sell it, and you could build a very profitable business around it. Then the playbook became codify the expertise, standardize the process, systematize the delivery, sometimes hire people to reproduce it and delegate to, and then you gradually remove yourself as the founder. And that worked for a while. And it was great because it let people scale and it let them work less. It let them serve more people. And when AI arrived on the scene, things changed even more. So AI accelerates that model enormously. Anything that can be clearly explained, documented, templated, or turned into a repeatable process can be increasingly reproduced at a much faster speed and for a much lower cost. Now, that doesn't make expertise worthless, unlike what most people are saying, but it does change where its locus of value moves. So information, polished content, decent or really good visual design are all becoming more and more abundant, right? Anyone with Claude Design or, ChatGPT can pump this stuff out, and it sounds pretty good. Like, it sounds AI generated for the most part. There's, this one guy on my Facebook feed who has claimed to written like over a dozen books, and he insists that it's not AI generated, but literally every single email, every single post, every single thing, every piece of copy he puts out, it's clearly AI, right? But he's, publishing it with his name on it, which is fine. But intelligent thinking actually required being intelligent, but now it's way less scarce. So what's happening is that the things that were enough of a moat no longer are. Like a few years ago, like if you looked at your email inbox before AI came along, there was a huge difference between people who were actually intelligent, actually thought in a sophisticated way, and actually had the writing skills to articulate those thoughts in a way that felt compelling. Like those emails looked very, very different than most other people's emails. And sure, like a lot of people had copywriters and, other people they outsourced to, but you could see a much bigger variation in the market. And you could also see that in people's content. Like if Instagram a few years ago, it required someone have some taste, some a sense and nuance of visual design. Like someone actually had to sit in Canva or one of the heavier, programs like Adobe Illustrator, I think, to actually sit and painstakingly design something, to make something look beautiful. And now, all of that stuff can be done so quickly, so easily, that the things that created a bit of a moat around your brand, the thing that set you apart, that allowed you to stand out, none of those things exist anymore. Because the more easily competence can be copied, the less valuable the expertise that's become normalized becomes. And actually, the more valuable your unique difference becomes. So your unique difference is not something that, other people can replicate just because they have access to the same AI tool. So this is your taste, your judgment, your original synthesis of different domains and different ideas, different interests, the things that fascinate you. It's your lived experience. It's the ability that lived experience has given you to notice that other people miss. It's your conviction about what matters, right? There are things you're very convicted about, and other people don't actually share that conviction. It's your unique way of seeing and creating value. It's your unique perspective in the world, right? You have a very unique point of view, whether or not you actually articulate that and express that. This is the cluster of things that I would call your artistry, right? And I want to be very clear about what I mean by that, because I'm not saying that every founder needs to start painting, writing poetry, or making their business look more creative. You may still do that if you want, but I'm not using artist here as an occupation. I'm actually describing a relationship to creation itself. An artist fundamentally creates something that could only have come through them. So if you're an expert founder, if you're a coach, consultant, creator, you run some sort of service business, right? You have some expertise that you're leveraging to create value for someone else and get paid for it. This is going to give you a completely new way of understanding a problem, right? When you filter through the thing that makes you unique, it gives you a completely different lens on the world. A distinction that you see that gives other people language for something that they felt but they could not actually explain. And I'm actually doing that in this video if you pay close attention. An original methodology, an unusual synthesis of several disciplines, a way of diagnosing and assessing and identifying a problem that nobody else could have seen. An offer that nobody else could have designed, a product with a very particular philosophy built into it. A customer experience that feels completely different from the alternatives. A community that's organized around an identity and a set of standards, not just a collection of, artifacts like content or posts, right? A body of work that changes at a fundamental level how people see themselves and what becomes possible for them. So artistry is not decoration that we add to the business. It's actually what happens when your taste, your judgment, your personality, your obsessions and fascinations, your life experience and your worldview becomes a core part of how your business actually creates value. What it does is it makes the value more uniquely yours. It makes it less ubiquitous. And underneath the economic argument, I believe that there is something much deeper. Like, yes, this is going to make you more money if you apply this, if you get this, if you digest this and you apply it at, a really, really deeply embodied level. But creativity is not just a more useful business skill. It's actually part of what we're here to do as human beings. We experience life, right? Beauty, pain, love, loss, desire, relationship, God, if you believe in that. We receive something from being alive. And then we give it back through expression, right? Just like we take an inhale, we take a breath in, and then we exhale. We give it right back. If we stop inhaling, if we stop experiencing, we're not going to live for very long. If we stop exhaling, if we stop expressing, we're also not going to live for very long. The inhale and the exhale is what creates a whole breath, right? And breath is life. So one of the deeper things I'm saying here is, creativity is the source of life. Because when we complete that circuit, when we experience and we express, that is the full flow of life force through human form. We turn what life has given us into an idea, a business, a piece of art, could be a YouTube video like this, right? A beautiful thumbnail, a methodology, a product, an experience, a relationship, or just a new possibility for another person. And I don't believe that we can feel fully fulfilled while remaining only consumers of life, right? I also don't think we can feel fully fulfilled if we're making a fuck ton of money, but we don't feel creatively expressed. Like I call this, creative sovereignty, where we all have this imperative to create the thing that we want to create, right? We all were designed in a unique way. We were put on the planet to be able to create something very specific in a unique way. And if we aren't creating in that way, we're not creating at the edge of our potential, we're not going to feel fulfilled, right? We're not going to feel expressed. We're not going to feel like we left it all on the dance floor in this life. Fulfillment comes from participating in creation. The making money, like money is important, right? But the making money is an intake. It's the inhale. Creation is the exhale. It's the expression. And it's not enough to just create in the conventional sense, right? Creating value in the conventional sense. We have this deeper imperative as human beings to make things beautiful, to make things unique, to make things aesthetic, to reflect our taste, to leave our imprint, to leave our fingerprints all over the world, right? As proof that we existed, right? As proof that we mattered, as proof that our unique existence in the world was not an accident. It was not an aberration. It was divinely ordained that we needed to exist. And this is how we do that. This is how we uncover and we connect to our worth. Worth comes from this sense that we belong, right? And belonging to me is this sense that there is inherent mathematical perfection in the universe, which means everything that exists because it deserves to exist, because it's inherently worthy, it has value. So from allowing everything we experience to move through us and acquiring a form that could not have existed without us, right? That is the full circuit. And I don't believe we create any of this alone. I don't believe that any of my ideas originate from me. It's like the iPhone and the iCloud, right? The iPhone is just the receiver, the interface through which we can connect to things in the iCloud. And I think it's the same for us human beings. We receive from this infinite intelligence source, capital S source, the universe, God, this whole thing that we are a part of, we are a reflection of, collective consciousness, right? Whatever language feels true to you, I bet at some point you've felt this connection. Something arrives spontaneously inside you. Something just emerges. There was nothing and then there was something, right? Which is also kind of how the universe came to be. Could be a question, could be an image, could be a melody, could be a pattern. All great works of art, all great inventions arrived in that way, right? Whether it was Newton observing the apple falling and, going on this deep rabbit hole of understanding gravity, whether it was Steve Jobs with the iPod, whether it's, Beethoven, like downloading a symphony and then starting to play it, like all great creations, right? All great acts of creation originate the same way. They don't come from us, they come through us. And something comes into form. It could be a truth that you see clearly. It could be a future that suddenly appears in your mind and you feel this deep desire to make it exist. And our job is to receive it, to develop it, and to give it form. When when we refuse that, by the way, we get the inspiration, we feel the possibility, we connect to the vision, and then we turn away. Like we don't actually show up, we don't receive it fully, we don't develop it, we don't give it form. I think that's the cause of all of our demons. Carl Jung actually thought that the cause of mental demons is, us not creating enough. So think of it like creative constipation. Just like when you're constipated in real life, you kind of backed up. Things get off, right? With your gut, you start not feeling great, and that becomes a medical issue after a while. Like it becomes serious. All health comes from flow, and all disease originates from stagnation. That's the whole sort of Eastern health perspective, right? In the East, everything is optimized to increase flow, because when there is flow, there's movement, and when there's movement, there's life. When there's stagnation, it's the beginning of, lack of health, of dis-ease. And so creativity works the same way. When we're creatively constipated, we start feeling really shitty, right? And when we're creatively expressed, we start feeling alive. We start feeling vibrant. We start having more ideas. We feel more inspired. We feel more energized. So we have to be good stewards of the vision, of the ideas, of the inspiration, of the possibilities, of the vision that source, God, the universe, whatever puts inside of us. And that's why I think of the modern founder as three people at once. So the first is the mystic. The mystic connects to source and receives what wants to emerge. The artist takes that and gives it original expression. And the architect builds the forms that allows it to reach more people, create more value, and actually live and exist in the world. The integration of all three allows us to step into the identity of what I call the exponentialist. The exponentialist is actually the founder of a new paradigm of entrepreneurship. And I'll be talking more about this in future videos. But the exponentialist listens like a mystic, creates like an artist, and builds like an architect. We need all three. They receive what wants to emerge through a living relationship with God, right? A living relationship with Source itself. They give it original expression through their soul, through their imagination, through their taste, and through their contact with the truth. Then they encode that living intelligence into media, intellectual property, products, code, AI, systems, and other assets that are actually capable of carrying its value into the world. So the conventional entrepreneur grows by multiplying their inputs, right? More hours, more effort, more people, sometimes more capital, often more complexity. The exponentialist, on the other hand, builds forms through which the value can multiply without the amount of the life force that's required also multiplying with it. So they multiply value independently of their life force. So their ideas travel through media. Their knowledge becomes intellectual property. Their methods become products and systems. Their intelligence is carried through code and AI. So each act of creation becomes an asset that can continue reaching people, producing transformation, and generating wealth long after the original effort is complete. And that is actually what gives the exponentialist extraordinary leverage. The ability to create exponentially greater value, reach, profit, and impact with a fraction of the time, energy, and effort required by conventional entrepreneurship. So as exponentialists, we don't use technology to automate the soul out of the work. We use exponential leverage to extend the reach of the soul, to amplify soul, so that what could only come through one human life can actually transform many lives without consuming the person that it actually came through. So this, to me, is not just a new paradigm for what I think entrepreneurship can become, but I think it's the highest paradigm. And it's only become possible in the last few years at this, convergence of things. And this is actually what's going to allow us to become more human, experience more joy, have more creative fulfillment, while simultaneously compounding wealth creation exponentially. So when the mystic and artist disappear, all that remains is architecture, right? Which is, useful on one level because the business still gets to function and it may even make a lot of money. And a lot of people are kind of stuck in this paradigm where it starts to feel really mechanical, feels flat, it feels dull, predictable. Like there's no life in it. There's no living current moving through it. There's no inspiration. There's no sense of discovery. There's no real sense of creation. The business has structure. Sometimes it has structure and lots of success, but it's lost its soul. And the soul of a business is not something you add through better branding or more beautiful design, right? Those are garnishing, right? It's not the real heart of it. The heart of soul in a business is the living intelligence that's moving through the founder and into the work and then into the world. And this is why it matters beyond differentiation or profit. Those things are great, but the goal is not just to use creativity to make the business perform better. The goal is to build a business where you get to remain in relationship with God, life, inspiration, and your own continued becoming and actualization, where everything you receive and express can actually create extraordinary value for other people. That is what brings soul into business. And that is what makes the work fulfilling to create, powerful for your people to receive, and genuinely alive. But receiving inspiration is not the same as developing artistry. So creativity is your capacity to generate new ideas, connections, and possibilities. Artistry is the devotion required to develop and express that creativity through a coherent body of work. So you can be incredibly creative and still have a generic business. You can have hundreds of ideas without a clear thesis. You can follow every fascination into a new offer. You can reinvent your positioning every 6 months. You can publish content about whatever happens to interest you that week, right? You can learn one game, you can get really good at it, you can see another opportunity, and you can reset the entire compounding process. So that's creativity without coherence. Because artistry actually requires discernment. Discernment requires us being clear about our values. And being clear about our values requires us to know who we are, right? We have to know who we are, where we want to go, and who we want to become. We need directionality through life. So we have to actually ask ourselves some very deep questions. What obsession, question, craft, right? What things are actually worthy of me spending the finite years of my life that I have left answering? What things do I want to master in this life? What ideas do I actually want to bring together into my body of work? What even is my body of work? Right? What domains am I integrating? What do I see that I feel responsible for expressing? I mean responsible in terms of like this deep, like existential moral obligation, right? Like I feel a deep moral obligation to express the things that I'm expressing, because I see things in a unique way, in a way differently than other people, because I've had different life experiences, right? I've walked through life in a different way. And I'm morally obligated to share that unique perspective, and so are you. What do I believe that other people in my industry don't? What standards does the work demand? What do I want to become world-class at creating? Like, I really think this whole game is about mastery, right? What am I willing to keep deepening instead of abandoning for the next shiny opportunity? Artistry is what happens when your creativity stops chasing novelty and begins deepening into a body of work, right? That's the difference between producing a collection of disconnected things and building a masterpiece. And by masterpiece, I don't mean one perfect product or one thing you eventually finish. I mean the evolving business and body of work that integrates everything that you've become into the most valuable expression of what only you can create. Your deepest interests, your hard-won expertise, your unique way of seeing, your creative ambition, your economic ambition, all of it becoming part of the same tapestry. But most people sacrifice their soul for success because that's what the cultural field requires. But as a friend of a friend says, the cultural field is a weak field. You can't live inside of consensus reality and expect to have an extraordinary life, right? And this is why the argument becomes way more personal. Your business may currently monetize the easiest part of you for the market to understand while leaving the deepest and most alive parts of you out. So you learned how to sell one capability. The market rewarded it, right? It's like, take my money, give me that thing. So the business became organized around selling and delivering more of it. Meanwhile, you keep evolving, you keep developing new interests, you see deeper patterns, you form stronger convictions about things, you become more capable of more sophisticated work. But the business kept paying you to remain legible as the person you used to be. So this actually creates a very particular kind of division. So you make money over here, and then you try and feel alive somewhere else. And that could be the writing, the art, the music, the research, the spiritual life, the experimentation, the strange questions that you can't stop thinking about, the ideas that may not have an obvious offer attached to them yet, but all of that stuff gets pushed into the margins after the commercially useful work is finished, because that's what feels like the responsible thing to do. And the tragedy isn't only that the business may be leaving money on the table, right? Because that's how most entrepreneurs are trained to think and filter for. But the greater tragedy, it's that it's leaving you out of the work. It's leaving your soul out of success. Now, you may already love what you do. This is not an argument that every successful founder has secretly built the wrong business. You may be doing exactly the work you want to do. You may be doing exactly the work that, God, the universe, source created you for, but that still doesn't mean that your business is capturing its full value. The richest part of your judgment may only appear when you're personally in the room. Your most interesting ideas may remain half developed because you don't see the commercial component to it. Your highest order creative work may keep getting crowded out by production, promotion, delivery, management, and decisions that no longer require your rarest abilities. So the question is not simply, do I enjoy my business? I think the deeper question is, can this business help my best work deepen, travel further, create extraordinary value, and actually become more valuable over time as I feel more creatively expressed and fulfilled? So society gives us two default models, and they both suck. The first is the starving artist. The starving artist protects their creativity from commerce. So they may produce brilliant work, but they resist positioning it clearly. They resist selling, structure, monetization. Sometimes they even resist understanding what the other person actually values enough to buy. And their creativity remains private expression without a viable economic relationship with the market. Terrible. Don't want to do this. The second model, also terrible, is the optimized operator. Now, the optimized operator starts with what the market already rewards, right? This is the person who's like, okay, what are people buying? Let me, sell a version of that. They standardize it, they systematize it, they delegate it, they automate it, and then they build a machine that gradually removes themselves from the work. And to be perfectly nuanced here, for some people, that's exactly what they should do because they don't actually care what they're doing as much as they care that what they're doing produces money, because that's their primary orientation, and there's nothing wrong with that. None of this is a moral judgment or qualification. And for a lot of people, that's the right thing to do. And, if that's you, then this is probably either not resonating for you or it's, making you think a lot deeper about your life. Either way, it's good. What I'm saying is that being an optimized operator can produce an extremely successful business. And for some of you, that's perfect. But it can also make that business progressively more efficient while making the work more generic, less alive, and less connected to the founder's continued evolution. So for some people, that sort of boring machine-like business is actually a perfect match for how their brain works, for their personality, and for who they are. But even for those people, as they grow, as they evolve, as they step into like new seasons of their life, they may still feel like they've outgrown their business. So if you feel like you need a level of creative expression, of originality, of inspiration, of possibility, of feeling lit up and alive, like you want your soul to be on fire as you create, and you want that to be how you make money. And actually, you make even more money when you feel even more that way and you express yourself in this way more. I think there's a much better model. And I think the best model for people like you and I is actually to become a rich artist. So the rich artist refuses the shitty trade-off. They don't protect the art from the business, right? And they don't also sacrifice the art to the business. They actually build the business around the artistry. They develop the work and build the commercial architecture capable of amplifying it. They don't choose between money and meaning. They don't choose between profit and play. And they don't make the trade-off between commercial ambition and creative expression. They ask, how do I build the business so the art produces the money and the money gives me greater freedom and capacity to deepen the art? Artistry does not create economic value simply because it exists inside you, right? The market has to be able to recognize it, desire it, buy it, experience it, and receive a result from it. That movement begins with a distinction. When your accumulated experience and way of seeing becomes a part of the work, it becomes more difficult to compare with generic alternatives. So it doesn't matter what your domain or niche is, right? The principle is universal. Here, when you fully embrace this, another business coach teaching growth. You're not another consultant improving the operations. You're not another creator teaching content or a software company offering, similar features. Your work actually begins to feel distinct. It begins to carry a recognizable fingerprint. People can smell that you were in the room, and in a good way, right? But being different is not enough either, right? Your difference has to matter to the right people, because you're not here to serve everyone. You're not here to be everything for everyone. That is the basis of resonance. So differentiation says you're different from the alternatives. Resonance says that your difference matters deeply to me. So the right person encounters your work and they think, wow, finally, someone who gets it. Wow, this is exactly how I see the world. This is exactly how I see the problem. Or, whoa, this person has just articulated something that I've felt in my bones, but I could never put my finger on. I could never explain it this way. Or, this is the version of the result that I actually want, right? There's a million ways to lose weight, but this is the way that I actually want to go about it. That recognition changes everything downstream. So they understand your value faster. They trust you faster. They need less persuasion and, convincing. They stop comparing you with every other generic alternative. They become more willing to buy. They become more willing to invest. And because they already understand the philosophy and want your particular version of the transformation, they often become better clients, right? They enter the work with greater trust, with greater commitment, more alignment. And that can actually often produce better results. When they get better results, you get more specific proof of your work, and more proof strengthens your reputation. And that reputation attracts more people who value the same difference. This is why resonance is the most economically consequential thing that you can organize your business around. It affects attraction, conversion, your pricing power in the market, the quality of customers and clients you get, your delivery, retention, referrals, reputation, LTV, and of course, the long-term brand equity, right? The long-term value of your brand. So your uniqueness is not an indulgence that the business has to accommodate. Don't think of it this way. It's actually the most important economic asset that the business should be designed to express and monetize. But if your artistry remains scattered across disconnected ideas, posts, offers, and products, the market still has to assemble the meaning for itself. And when you make your audience do the heavy cognitive lifting, they're often not going to do it, right? So this is where a world becomes important. And I think of this in a very, very practical business sense, right? And I'll explain. So a business world is not just a vibe that's layered over your same old generic marketing. This is a coherent reality that you build around your way of seeing and creating value. It begins with a worldview, with your worldview. So a set of beliefs that you already hold about the problem, the person, the desired feature, and how the transformation actually happens. That unique worldview produces distinctions. Those distinctions create language. The language becomes intellectual property. The intellectual property shapes your positioning, your content, your offers, your products, your delivery, and of course, your customer experience. And then you notice an identity form around the work. People don't just understand what you sell, they begin to recognize who they are or who they want to become inside the world that you're creating. And inside that world, your content becomes its public surface. Your offers become doorways into it. Your products become portable artifacts from it and assets. Your community becomes participation and circulation and interconnectivity inside it. Your delivery allows people to experience the philosophy rather than just hear about it. Your stories, symbols, standards, and language become culture. Your customers begin using the distinctions themselves, right? They start repeating your language back to you. They start describing their problems through your language, and they start seeing the world through your language. They articulate the work to other people in a similar way. They transmit the culture when you're not present. And every act of creation deepens the same body of work instead of disappearing into the feed. This is so much more economically consequential than building a strong brand, because you're teaching people to see through your model of reality. And once they see the problem through your distinctions, they stop wanting the generic solution. A generic solutions stop existing for them, right? You and your solution and your approach becomes the only thing that can exist in their consciousness. They want your version of it. And that's when content stops being an endless demand for novelty, but it becomes a really beautiful creative flow of expression, because one idea becomes a distinction. That distinction becomes language. That language becomes a framework. The framework becomes IP. The IP becomes an offer. The offer creates an experience. The experience creates results for them. The results create proof. The proof strengthens your reputation and your world. And then the next thing you create begins from a larger base. You stop returning to zero and you start creating a compounding flywheel, which brings us back to AI. Because AI can either deepen this advantage or it can completely destroy it. And this is happening to a lot of entrepreneurs online right now. It can help you generate a much larger volume of work that looks and sounds like everyone else. Or it can remove the friction that's preventing your most original work from reaching the world. So AI can help with a lot of things like research, organization, production, editing, repurposing. It can help you with the distribution of the intelligence that you've already developed. But you still have to decide, what is worth creating? What do I actually believe? What standards must it meet? What inside me must be expressed? What belongs in the world? What should be removed? What is the next evolution of the work? Because AI can imitate many of the forms that your artistry takes, but it can't live your life for you. It can't have your relationships. It doesn't have your scars, right? It can't feel desire for you. It can't take responsibility for deciding what deserves to exist. So use AI to remove everything that's standing between you and your creative expression, but don't use it to remove you from the expression. I don't want AI to create in my place. I want it to remove the administration, the friction, the repetitive production, the operational weight that prevents me from creating at the level that I know I'm capable of. I don't want the machine to become the artist. I want it to amplify my artistry. I want it to scale my economic instrument while deepening the flow state that I experience when playing it. It's like going from playing for a few people in your living room to a stadium holding tens of thousands of people by plugging your guitar into the amplifier, right? This creates a very different model of leverage. So the old model asks, how do I remove the founder from the business? But the rich artist asks, what should only I originate? What can I play that allows me to experience asymmetric joy, turn on, and inspiration while creating exponentially more value for others? What parts of my work require my taste, judgment, creativity, relationships, or direct presence? And what can media, intellectual property, products, people, systems, software, and AI carry without diluting what made the work valuable in the first place? Because the goal is not to make the founder unnecessary. The goal is to stop wasting the founder's life force on work that does not require the founder, that doesn't turn them on, that doesn't allow them to feel like they're fully alive. Just like a musician can have a bunch of albums that people can listen to on Spotify and still go on tour to perform live, and then the tour performance becomes another album that millions can listen to, which only makes them want to buy more tickets to the next concert, right? There's a compounding flywheel here. This is the way to build a business that gives you money, meaning, and mojo. This is how you build a tiny, highly profitable company without limiting your vision, your creativity, and your soul. The architecture becomes lighter, but the world becomes larger. And this is where money becomes part of the artistry rather than something opposed to it. So profit is what happens when your private creation becomes valuable to other people, and the business is able to capture enough of that value to continue funding the work. Money protects your attention. It lets you say no to work that dilutes the masterpiece. It allows you to invest in better tools, people, experiences, and environments. It lets you follow questions where the value may not be obvious yet. It buys you back your time. It reduces scarcity and desperation. It gives you the capacity to take larger creative risks. It allows you to build for decades instead of optimizing everything around the next launch. So your business should fund your continued becoming. It should fund your actualization into the greatest fucking version of you. It should not force you to stop becoming because the old version of you still sells, and that's what people are buying. This is the rich artist flywheel. So your artistry creates distinction. Distinction creates resonance. Resonance creates desire and demand. The demand creates stronger economics, and the stronger economics lead to more profit and sovereignty. Then sovereignty returns time, energy, freedom, and creative capacity back to the artist. And the artist is able to develop more work, the work deepens, the world that they create becomes more valuable, and then the next cycle begins from a larger base. This is how profit, meaning, play, freedom, fulfillment, and creative evolution stop competing with each other. They stop being something you trade off between, and they actually begin compounding. The business becomes an incentive system for your actualization, for the expression of your creative potential. And the more you learn, evolve, experiment, and deepen your craft, and the more you become yourself, the more valuable the business becomes. And the more valuable that the business becomes, the more freedom you get to continue learning, to continue obsessing, to continue evolving, experimenting, and creating. Because you're never finished, right? You're always growing, you're always learning, you're always evolving. And so the body of work is never finished. The masterpiece is never finished. And that's actually a good thing because it makes entrepreneurship an infinite game. So how the fuck do you actually apply this? How do you use this in your business? So I would look at your business in 3 parts. So the first one is, what can only you originate? Not what only you can physically do today, but what is the thing that truly requires your very unique and particular perception, judgment, taste, creativity, lived experience, or relationship? What do you see that your market does not yet see, right? No one was sitting around, asking for an iPod before Steve Jobs was like, I think we should build an iPod, right? What ideas do people consistently associate with you? Where does 1 hour of your highest order thinking create a disproportionate amount of value? What work gives you energy while creating extraordinary value for another person? This has to be the beginning of your artistry, right? That's why in the pay to exist model, the first thing is source. Because when you're connected to your source, that is your genius, not your zone of excellence, not your zone of competence. Like, it's even beyond your zone of genius because this is the thing that you were divinely designed for. And when you're operating according to your divine design, right? When you're embracing your uniqueness, then you experience what I call unreasonable turn on. You feel more lit up. You feel more alive. You feel like what you're doing sets your soul on fire. You feel really inspired. You make the best decisions and you operate from the maximum amount of asymmetry that's available to you. Okay. So the second bit of this is, where does that artistry need to become more visible and more coherent? So can the market actually recognize your way of seeing? So in the pay to exist model, this is the signal part, which is taking that asymmetry and making that recognizable, visible to the market. Does your positioning actually express that? Or does it express a more limited, diluted, earlier version of you? Does your content actually develop it? Or are you playing it safe, not taking any risks, coloring within the lines? Do your offers actually allow someone to buy it? Does your delivery actually let people experience it? Do your products, community, proof, customer experience all reinforce the exact same worldview? Like, is there coherence? Or is the meaning scattered across a collection of disconnected things? So that tells you whether you've actually built a coherent world around the artistry or if it's just a fragmented mess. Okay, third, how can the business deliver more value without you personally recreating it every time? So which parts, and in the pay to exist architecture, there's the structure layer, which parts can become IP? What can you turn into media, products, curriculum, community, training for your team, systems, right? AI. And where does your direct presence remain essential? Because it actually changes at a fundamental level the quality of the result. That tells you what the architecture should carry and what must actually remain close to source. And those questions reveal whether your business is amplifying your artistry or just consuming your performance. So, a rich artist is a founder who turns their unique way of seeing and creating value into a coherent business and a body of work, and then builds the economic architecture that allows that work to generate extraordinary profit, freedom, and wealth. Rich artists are rich in more than revenue. This is about so much more than money, and it's actually the way to make way more money than you're currently making. The rich artist accumulates IP. They accumulate audience assets, reputation, relationships. They create more brand equity. They generate more customer proof. They build more assets. They get more time, energy, and creative freedom back. And they build a body of work that becomes more valuable as they become more capable of creating it. This is the heart of the new paradigm of entrepreneurship, what I call entrepreneurship 3.0, and I'm going to be making more videos about this soon. But imagine no longer dividing yourself between the work that makes money and the work that makes you feel fully alive. Imagine that they all become part of the same current. You wake up knowing what you're here to deepen, and you wake up feeling excited and lit up. These ideas that you cannot stop thinking about become intellectual property. And I'm doing this right now. Like, this was just an idea that occurred to me, and I went into a deep obsessive rabbit hole to flesh this whole thing out so I can bring it to you, right? The intellectual property becomes the content, the offers, the products, the experiences, and the culture you create around your brand. The right people find the work, and they feel like they've finally found the person who can see what they see. And the business generates more profit because it becomes more distinct. And that profit buys you more time, energy, and freedom to deepen the work. And you experience way less forcing, and you just flow through life, right? You're in the creative flow. There's less fragmentation. You feel more integrated. There's less internal negotiation. You don't have to keep yourself in this hostage situation with your business. And you don't operate from the sense that commercial success, making money, actually pulls you away from yourself and your soul. The business begins to feel like one coherent, creative movement that carries you forward as you carry it forward. I don't know about you, but that's the only kind of business that I'm interested in building. And it's the kind of business that actually help other expert founders build, which to me, this is the holy grail of entrepreneurship. And I call the economic architecture for doing this to become a rich artist, pay to exist. Pay to exist helps you identify the highest value work that you're uniquely capable of creating and make that value unmistakable to the right market, to the right people, and then turn it into positioning, IP, offers, products, delivery, and recurring profit. And then build the media, the people, the systems, the software, the AI, the assets that actually allow more people to receive that value without requiring proportionally more of your life force. So the objective is a $500K to $3 million annual profit business built around your expertise that you actually genuinely enjoy running. Not a business that pays you to repeat the same performance forever, but a business that becomes more profitable, more leveraged, more valuable, and more alive as it grows. So if you already have valuable expertise, if you have a proven offer, if you have real customer results, but you can tell that your business is only capturing a fraction of everything that you've learned, built, and become, then I actually built Pay to Exist for you. So you can play this game with us in two ways. You can build through the Pay to Exist OS at your own pace, which is self-directed, or you can work with me directly inside the accelerator where I help you diagnose the architecture, determine the priorities, and actually sequence the right changes so you build your own masterpiece. So there's links below. Watch the short overview if you like, and choose the path that's right for you if you want to join us inside. But either way, I want you to know this. Your creativity can become your ultimate unfair business advantage. but only when you develop it into artistry, when you build a coherent world around it, when you create an economic architecture that's powerful enough to carry it without you pushing a boulder uphill. The goal is not to turn your soul into a product. The goal is to build a business that no longer requires you to lose your soul. You don't have to choose between creating your greatest work of art and becoming extraordinarily wealthy. The rich artist builds a business where each of those things make the other even more possible.